The science of gratitude. For many, including myself, science is not needed to prove the efficacy, importance, or legitimacy of gratitude. Some of the best things, I believe, are there to be discovered freely with what we already have because it is intended for us to discover them. You don't need special instruments to find wisdom, love, kindness, or charity. That said, the ever-curious, hungry for progress Western mind has recently turned its sights onto this timeless practice and come up with a variety of supportive works to translate what has been traditionally a spiritual practice into the analytical, results-focused language that people today relate to. So, for the nerdy, curious, scientific, and otherwise interested, I've collected a few interesting studies on the practice of gratitude and its diverse impact on our lives. These studies represent a growing body of research that supports the important principles discussed in this book. So I hope that you'll enjoy them and generously share your newfound party facts with your friends and coworkers as a way to encourage them into this vital life practice. Why? Because science says so. Motivation and productivity. Usually when one thinks of motivation, they conjure up mental pictures of high-energy speakers, big inspiring goals, or even negative consequences for not acting. While all of these are valid parts that do play their role in our behavior, remember that there are two sides to the coin, always. What if gratitude could hold an equal role in motivation without all of that power, energy, and effort? What if motivating yourself or staying motivated wasn't always about pushing beyond a state of non-motivation, but more about opening yourself up to what already is and allowing that to rejuvenate and refresh your actions? It's an interesting thought that especially in our Western world of achieving and doing, gratitude has major benefits in the areas of motivation and productivity. It doesn't seem like it at first because gratitude is all about slowing down, finding stillness, appreciating what's there, and if anything, not acting. How can all of this stuff have anything to do with productivity and motivation? The answer to this is simple. In order to take in a lot of air, one must first exhale fully. Gratitude allows for rejuvenation and refueling of your mind just like sleep, eating right, and taking regular breaks do for your body. It functions like the space between the notes, and without that space, there's no music, just noise. The following studies look at motivation and productivity in some interesting ways. In the first, Emmons and McCullough, 2003, 3 groups of people were followed for 10 weeks. One group was asked to regularly take note and reflect on positive things that had happened to them, the gratitude group. Another was asked to do the opposite and keep count of all the negative things that they were experiencing, the complaining group, poor them. And finally, the third group was neutral and just kept track of non-impactful things like errands, which of course is the control. After the 10 weeks had elapsed, the gratitude group had not only been more productive and optimistic, but also engaged in exercise more consistently, suggesting that the impact of a daily gratitude practice had trickled into many aspects of their behavior and routine. These results were in contrast to the complaining group, who measured below the control and who were unproductive and inconsistent with their routines by having focused constantly on what had not gone right. In the second study, Grant and Gino, 2010, the effect of acknowledgement was studied on the performance of university fundraisers, the people who solicit you for donations after you've graduated, as well as their peers. To no surprise, just being acknowledged for one's work and their value to the group translated to higher performance, retention, and even residual performance effects to others around them that didn't even directly receive the acknowledgement. All of this is because gratitude has very marked pro-social effects. It is very visceral, relational, and catalytic for positive social interactions. Because human beings thrive on positive relationships and social integration, which are actually some of the most important markers for longevity, see the study by Holt and Lundstedt in 2010. It comes as no surprise that gratitude's pro-social effects also have meaningful consequences for physical and mental health, motivation, successful relationships, and yes, even productivity. Relationships. In your study of the 3 pillars, you learned that gratitude, generosity, and service of others were the keys to creating long-lasting, abundant relationships. If you can't be grateful, it is impossible to experience love and maintain a relationship of any kind. And you cannot truly have a foundation of gratitude unless you have a genuine connection to God. This is the secret, hiding right under your nose, for true love and lasting fulfillment. More than anything else, First, develop an attitude of gratitude in your life, and you will not only be ready for positive relationships with others, but have the spiritual and mental wherewithal to handle the inevitable changes that come with those relationships as well. And now, science has something to say about the matter too, through the many pro-social effects that gratitude creates in our relationships. In 2 studies, gratitude was looked at as a tool for helping elevate the sense of connectedness and satisfaction that people experience in their relationships. The studies were Algo et al. 2010 and Lambert and Fincham 2011. And also gratitude's ability to foster trust and communication. In the first, couples were asked to keep track of when their partner did something for them and also when they acknowledged their partner in return. On the days that an acknowledgement was present, both partners reported an increase in satisfaction and sense of connectedness to each other, and for a day later, adding weight to other studies that suggest gratitude's pro-social benefits are not just immediate, but also have lingering effects. In the second study, the increase in appreciation each partner experienced as a result of practicing gratitude also directly correlated with their comfort in expressing concerns. By elevating their perception of one another through gratitude, this fostered a sense of trust and open communication about the, quote, hard stuff that is often difficult to deal with in relationships. This makes sense, given that gratitude is a practice of opening oneself up, and since that opening is not selective but general, it creates results in all areas of life through the development of courage and vulnerability. To me, love is a package that includes gratitude and generosity working, or maybe dancing, together as you've already learned. And while the thought of opening ourselves up to somebody else is often scary and uncomfortable, science reassures us that we can acclimate to this challenge by doing some spiritual reps in the form of just being grateful for life in general as a starting point. It reaffirms what you learned in the 3 pillars. First, practice gratitude in your life by connecting to God. Second, be generous because God has been generous with you. And third, when these 2 are consistently done, listen and serve that person in the way that they want to be served as an added bonus. Health and happiness. Health is a complex picture with many moving parts, and while some of that picture is completely subjective to each person, there are fundamentals that can guide our efforts regardless. Gratitude is one of these fundamentals, and with a new body of research emerging on its many physical and mental health benefits, it is gaining traction as an important part of a balanced life. You don't have to take my word for it either. Check out what one of these studies concluded. Gratitude has one of the strongest links with mental health and satisfaction with life of any personality trait, more so than even optimism, hope, or compassion. People who experience gratitude can cope effectively with everyday stress, show increased resilience in the face of trauma-induced stress, recover more quickly from illness, and enjoy more robust physical health. Taken together, these results indicate that gratitude is incompatible with negative emotions and pathological conditions, and that it may even offer protection against psychiatric disorders. Cited from Gratitude as a Psychotherapeutic Intervention, Emmons, 2013. The thought of something as simple as a gratitude practice for treating mental and emotional health is indeed quite antithetical to the pill-popping, diagnosis-obsessed culture that we live in today. But thankfully, it is gaining traction as a legitimate therapy in light of the many problems resulting from the current modus operandi. Part of a growing field of study aimed at researching what makes people and communities thrive and perform at an optimal level, the practice of gratitude has gained serious momentum in the last 10 to 15 years. Another researcher, psychologist Martin Seligman of the University of Pennsylvania, tested the effect of various interventions among hundreds of volunteers. One of the methods was writing and personally delivering a letter of gratitude to someone the participant had never properly thanked for their kindness. Out of all of the interventions studied, this simple act created the highest measures of happiness with benefits lasting up to a month afterwards. The next study, focusing on the pro-social effects of spending on others, focused on generosity. When asked to spend money on themselves or somebody else, or recall a time that they had done so, participants noted a considerable difference in their happiness when they had given to others. Of note here is that these marked increases in happiness, both in the moment and for extended periods afterward, occurred when the impact of their generosity was something that they were aware of. In other words, being connected to the purpose and result of their actions by simply knowing what impact they had created through their generosity made a big difference in their level of happiness. This last little bit is important because I believe it underlines the relationship between gratitude and generosity to create the virtuous cycle that you learned about in the chapter on the secret weapon. They work together to create positive momentum in your life that can bear much fruit. When you give generously, it has a considerable impact on your level of happiness. This was studied by O'Brien and Cassirer in 2018. And when that giving is also recognized, even if through a simple detail making you aware of your social impact, it multiplies the pro-social effects, increases your happiness and your sense of integration in society, and it also propels you forward through the virtuous cycle because your generosity has been coupled with gratitude. The final study I have chosen to share with you makes a powerful point about giving, and it brings this all home. As you learned back when we were studying the swamp, it's natural to habituate to any stimulus. Even with the things we love, it's easy to dull our senses and find them less valuable over time. Not so with giving. Generosity bypasses this habituating mechanism and allows us to experience each new time we give, even if it's to the same person and with the same things, as profoundly as the first. What's happening exactly? Our brain thinks and feels it's a new experience, and because it thrives on the thrill of having discovered something new, it rewards us in turn with the corresponding long-lasting benefits for that discovery through a strong dose of happiness. In this study, 2 experiments were considered on the effects of spending on oneself versus spending on others. In the first, people were given $5 a day to spend on themselves or someone else, and they had to keep track of their happiness throughout a 5-day period. While all participants started at a similar baseline, those who had to spend their money on others noted little to no decline in happiness over the course of 5 days, compared to the other group who did. In the second study, a similar experiment was drawn up to have people play 10 rounds of a word puzzle game. Every round would award 5 cents with a requirement to either keep the money or donate it to charity. Participants then had to measure the degree to which winning made them happy, with, surprise, surprise, those that were giving their winnings away reporting little decline in their experience of joy when winning again, and those who kept their money for themselves losing interest considerably more as time went on. The lesson? Contribution to others has much longer lasting effects than contribution to ourselves because it ignores the brain's acclimation to stimulus response. Or, in more scientific words, giving is better than receiving. For the citations to these studies, please refer to the appendix of the book.